So, welcome to more of dissolving pain in nature's flow. And today will be quite a medley, in a way, of how we can approach the physicality of tension and physical pain. We'll even bring in some Qigong practices. And then also, what about emotional pain? And we'll see that there's kind of this correspondence where we can see that these ways that we tend to react to physical pain by bracing, by tensing, by either being preoccupied by it or trying to shut it out of our experience, that has parallels with how we can tend to relate to emotional hurt. Someone says something that hurts us. It touches, even if very briefly, a really tender place in ourselves. And one of the ways that our system can react to that is to try and toughen up. It was just so tender, something touching something so very tender that we want to brace against life, another person, even our own inside relationship with ourself, ever touching something that tender again. And so we kind of cement over, brace up, tense up, cut off that feeling, even as we're also probably ruminating a million miles a second, or if you're like me, about, how to, make it right so that this doesn't happen again, and how, building yourself up, tearing the other person down, getting some kind of a strategy for how we can just end up so far removed from this immediacy of something really touched us and it really hurt. It really hurt. But one of the tragedies about this kind of strategy of a response to both physical hurt and emotional hurt, as we've been really going into and exploring over these many sessions of dissolving pain in nature's flow, is that when we brace, when we harden, when we want to both protect and disconnect from the heart, the only way we can do that is by disconnecting ourselves from how it is this flow of nature. That tenderness, that sore spot, that hurt itself is as we've been coming to see from various angles and various perspectives and various approaches, is a flow of nature that has the qualities of presence that would enable us to have both the tenderness, the realness of that, and also a resilience that is part of who we are in our being, rather than a cutting off of the fullness of who we are in our being. And throughout this series, I've been really, as much as is appropriate, wanting to give credit where credit is due, while being clear that I'm not an expert in various approaches or teachings or methodologies that I might be incorporating here. And so we've talked about dissolving pain in open focus with Dr. Les Fehmi. Repeatedly come back to how the sense that there's these underlying characteristics, these underlying qualities that is shared by all of nature and is shared by us, is shared by our hurt. That comes from the teaching of Master Wonchull Park, physicist and Tai Chi master, and especially his second book, Nowflow, Breath, Movement, Mind. And today's session is, as I said, it's going to be an adventure with some Qigong, with this parallelism between physical hurts and bracing around physical hurts, and, shutting down around emotional hurts. And I am a student of the Diamond approach, which is a wonderful spiritual teaching and path that combines this sense that, is for me the essence of this practice, and how it, works, how it works on us, the grace of it, as I was speaking of the other day, which is that we're not aiming to make ourselves any different, to realize any special state, to make any kind of spiritual distancing on our life as it shows up in living. But to recognize that, right in the very experience of having a physical hurt or an emotional hurt, like right there in that immediacy of making real contact with that experience, that we come to realize our true nature. And our true nature takes care of the healing and the potential that it always has, and can never be taken away, and can only be more fully and recognized, appreciated, lived. And so the diamond approach has qualities of presence that they talk about, many, many more that kind of span more of the emotional spectrum of lived human experience. And one is they call it the subtleties of being. And the green latifa of compassion. And where in that teaching they, in a way, talk about how there's the first hurt of life just hurting. And then there's the almost greater hurt of the closing off of our own heart, our own compassion for ourselves and others, and compassion, like feeling with. It reminds me in a way of the story of the Buddha's second arrow, where life shoots a first arrow at us and it hits us. And then we ourselves shoot that second arrow in how we react. And that, similar to all that I've been sharing here, the best of my ability currently, about how these qualities of presence are what enables us to be with the fullness of life experience, feeling resourced in the fullness of our being, which gives this option of feeling that we can fully relate to an emotional hurt, be with it, and keep our heart, our being open and deeply protected from the inside out by these qualities, so that we don't feel overwhelmed by the incredible tenderness of being a human being. And as we get into today's practice, maybe some sense of how that tenderness itself is that refinement, that fine flowing, really flowing, together flowing, contactfully flowing, integrated, interbeing, interconnected flowing of being part of this really crazy unfolding that we go around and usually try and manage in a whole variety of ways. And to start today, we'll begin standing if that's comfortable for you. And just maybe scanning the shoulders, scanning the neck for any areas of tightness, tension, bracing. And maybe just closing the eyes and even calling to mind an experience where you maybe twisted your neck or slept a bit wrong, or your shoulder felt twingy, or your low back was finicky, and how you began to hold yourself, maybe even as I'm talking about it, kind of getting into that embodiment of like a kind of a protective, braced. There's a way you're kind of shielding that spot from a movement that could hurt, from contact that could hurt. It's kind of interesting if you have like ever sprained an ankle and then the the other foot starts hurting because of the way you're limping around. I know that's happened to me where the tension of protecting can in a way exacerbate our discomfort, even as it's sometimes a very necessary and important response. Kind of put our own cast around a place that feels hurt. And then can just shake that off. And in other places in this series, we've gone more into how you could localize that pain and feel the free flow, the mutual flow, dissolve that bracing around of physical pain. So just using that to bring forth the parallels here of, for a moment, perhaps just feeling into your heart area. In Tai Chi, it's the middle dantian, where we tend to centralize some of our emotional experiences. We say our heart hurts, heartache, or our heart overflows with joy. And maybe taking a moment to bring the hands around and just place them gently at your heart center. And there's, in any person's life, there's many times where our heart got hurt, many residues there that can make it hard for us to soften our chest area and even soften our heart itself. And for today's practice, if you'd like to pick something to work with, a way that your heart got hurt that On a scale from 1 to 10, letting this be a practice. You pick maybe something on the 3 to 4 scale. To discover more of our resilience before going into more challenging hurts. Just taking a moment here to, if you like, kind of scan back and forth in your week. And pick a moment where, whew, that hurt. And then gradually can bring the hands. And if you want to open your eyes for this, just let the gaze be soft. Continuing to feel into your heart as the hands expand until they feel like they're holding, embracing a large sphere in front of us. Letting the hands hold the sphere, slightly spreading the fingers. And letting the heart touch that sphere. It's part of all that's embracing this sphere. Your arms, surface of your chest. Seeing what it's like to let the space between the underarms feel a little wider. And really come in for a hug of that sphere, allowing the shoulders perhaps to round a little forward, allowing the chest to feel a little softly concave as you embrace that sphere that touches and helps your heart area to find its subtle and supple mobility once again. And then flipping the hands up towards the sky. And these hands are going to come down the inside of that sphere we were holding. And as they pass the heart area, just pausing and letting the elbows go wide to the sides. Letting the underarm area feel wide. Feeling like the hands are gently helping to bring in that suppleness of a concave around your heart. And breathe here. Breathing here. Letting the breath continue to soften that area. Even as you may feel a gentle stretching across the back and the neck. We're actually opening the heart. It feels concave. Notice if it can feel protected. And also more subtle and supple in the movements around and through our heart. And then letting the hands continue to trace that inside of that sphere. And then we're going to come up and around and hold the outer sphere again. Holding that sphere. Noticing any difference in the heart area. And then we'll move with this, with the breath, the breathing out. Breathing in. Out. In. Just noticing how it feels as the hands pass by our heart in this inner embrace each time. And savoring for 3 more here. And ending with one settling movement. Down. And so we started with that embracing Qigong move as a way to maybe discover some of the habitual holding that we have around our heart. That's both a physical holding and an inner emotional bracing as well. And so we'll go into the foundations here. You're welcome to sit however's comfortable for you. Where we'll tap more into these qualities of nature's flow. These qualities of presence that when we feel them kind of miraculously have just what our hurt is needing in any given moment. You may like to close the eyes. And we begin with the quality of presence that is this so immediate and contactful sense of together, mutual being, and that we can feel just with our shoulders laying down more fully to our torso. And our hands more fully laying down and receiving the support of our lap or the ground. Taking our time here to feel that surface area of contact between hand and lap. The nuances of pressure, sensation, helping the hands and the entire arms feel how they can rest. Noticing any subtle bracing or holding around the wrist or the thumb area or the palm of the hand. And for a couple of breaths, perhaps imagining that the breath is flowing through the center of the palms of both hands. Like the air is streaming through the center of the hands. Just to wake up more of the subtle feeling of our hands. The front of the hands gently holding the air above them. And the back of the hands sinking into the support beneath. Before we were imagining the air flowing in and out through the center of the palms of our hands. But here, just no need to imagine anything. In the subtlety of being, just the movement of our body as we breathe will ripple out and affect the back of our hands in contact with our lap. Just opening to that subtle shift, the tiniest movement at the back of the hands. And it comes from being one, all interconnected, flowing body. How even the experience of sensation of hands resting on lap is not static, it's not uniform, but is dynamic. And ever unfolding in its togetherness. The mutual flow of nature. And with a flavor of that quality in our experience, we can see what we feel in other areas of our experience and see if it shares part of that common flavor of mutual flow. Starting with our seat on the ground. Letting our weight settle upon the ground. Letting our body receive the support of the ground. And within that sensation of contact, beginning to explore the subtleties, differences in pressure, micro movements that shift, even if it's just a tiniest fraction of how our sit bones lie upon the earth. How even seemingly straightforward experience like body on the earth has this irresolvability, like water, like flowing water. Dynamic, dynamic everywhere without exception. And in every moment. So now perhaps even imagining that our physical body is like a body of water. And the breath is kind of like the dropping of a leaf into the middle of that body of water. And the ripples on the surface and the ripples all through the body of the water extend to the very edges of that one body of water and to our one body of being here. And since it can be hard to imagine just how subtle and dynamic, free-flowing we are as a flow of nature, as part of the routine of practice, we touch in on the free flow of air starting at our nose. Feeling the subtle sensations of breath as it comes in as it flows out. Maybe it's easier to expect that that streaming air is so fine and so free in its dynamic flow. And so getting a taste of it there, inside the space of our nose. The subtlest sensation of flow we can feel. Like an ongoing opening. That never resolves into, oh, I got it. That's the finest flow. Flow of nature is like this kaleidoscopic fractal. Within any flow, ever finer flows. And then letting that free flow of the air come all the way down into our lungs, surrounding our heart. Feeling that air literally coming down into us. Surrounding our heart in the lungs. And bringing subtle movement throughout that entire area. To the front. The back, to the sides. In a way, feeling the circumference of our ribs and body around our heart. And the 3D expansion as the air comes into that space. Perhaps seeing if we can feel how the width between the sides of our body becomes wider and smaller with the breath. Just the natural breath. Letting the movement be subtle. And then the back to front sense too of that area right in front of our heart and the area of our back behind our heart. And the widening of that space between, and how that space between also becomes a little bit smaller at times during the breath. All from this free flow of air coming down inside us and helping us to feel the free flow of our body too, in all 3 dimensions of space. And for today's practice, we're going to stay with feeling our torso and our heart area. And to help with this, taking a moment to slightly spread all the fingers. And we'll skip the finger by finger, breath by breath practice for today. Instead, just feeling like you can breathe in and out through all 10 fingers, through those sensitive fingertips. And then on the next in-breath, slightly spreading the fingers further. So there's a expansion of the spaces between the fingers. And on the out-breath, letting all the spaces between the fingers be a little more small. Very subtle movement. Like we can let the space between our fingers breathe. Feeling into the space between all the fingers. And now resting the hands with them still feeling slightly spread. And feeling how the space between the fingers and the space above the palm of the hand is this one whole space. And then drawing the hands up again to hold that sphere. Embracing the sphere in front of you. And go ahead and put the hearts of the hands, the center of the two hands, where they overlap and touch each other so that you get to make a complete circuit. There's this wholeness of this loop in space. And just feeling the whole integrity of that loop in space. The completeness. No part of that loop missing. And letting this further represent the whole integrity of nature's flow unfolding in one now. One whole togetherness. And letting your heart area feel included in that integrity, where nothing outside of this now can affect our heart. Nor can anything in this moment interact with anything beyond this moment. It's just this. And again, bringing your hands to rest upon your heart. Receive the touch. And let your hands witness the subtlety of movement beneath your hands. If you would like to make some sound like humming or just ah, and let your hands witness that further subtlety of that vibration, the very subtle flows beneath your hands, where all of you, including your bones, including the physical stuff right there, so finely free, mutually flowing, all together resonating. And you're welcome to leave your hands there or let them rest again at your lap. And feeling what it would be like to center yourself not only at the surface area of your heart, but to feel like you can drop inward more to the middle of your being. And be there. Be here in our hearts, looking around from inside our hearts, noticing what we notice, feeling what we feel. There can be a whole galaxy of experience, a whole kind of art museum of all these worlds of what we can feel. Whole ecosystem of so many interrelations and niches there within our heart. And so bringing forth that recollection, that moment you picked, where you felt hurt in your heart. And letting whatever experience that evokes for you just be there. Let it be there in your heart as you too are in your heart with it. Perhaps feeling as though the breath can flow in and out through the heart. As this gentle reminder that yes, you too are flow. You too are this fine, free, contactful flow of nature. Just as you are. Sometimes emotional heart can have a sharpness, a burn, an edge, a weight. And we feel into that experience just as it is. Feel into our hearts just as they are. Might even say, you are welcome here in my heart. You're welcome here in my heart. And you too are a flow of nature, flowing dynamically with everything else here together. I'm together here with you. And if it feels right to you, even beginning to immerse right into the sensation of hurt, so that there's no you, there's just being. There's one experience of being that includes in its utter directness this experience. Where there might not be even a sense of being with, just the raw being of such exquisite sensation. Something so exquisitely impressionable and tender, that an experience can touch it to this depth of heart. And that perhaps this exquisite impressionability and tenderness of our heart, of our soul, its dynamic, subtle nature is part of the miracle of being, the fullness of being a human being. And can, when we allow ourselves to make the fullness of contact with it just as it is, as this flow of nature, with these qualities of presence, that it's our birthright of resilience, our birthright of protection, an unconditional source that's not even separate from our being. It's baked in. And so just taking a few breaths, and checking in with this experience of relating to our underlying tenderness as human beings, how our hearts get hurt, from this perspective that what we most need for the resilience to keep going is also right there in the very same tenderness of our heart. And this completes an hour presence for dissolving pain, including the hearts of our heart in nature's flow with this inherent quality of compassion, of presence, of truly being together in this dynamism of unconditional resilience. And just letting the practice soak in a few minutes. Resting. And moving any way that feels good for you. And transitioning into the rest of your day. I always so enjoy our discussions afterwards. Can't even go into that until I say thank you for adventuring here together with me in this practice, together with us, whether live or in recorded time. It's always so meaningful to practice and do these kinds of inner explorations of possibilities with each other. So if you have any questions or comments about today's practice, always good to see some familiar people coming back. Hey, Swiss R. Hello, Emily. I think you might be new. I think I saw Matt come by. Let's see. We have several people who might be new here. Welcome to introduce yourself. Almost midnight in Switzerland. Swiss R, what are you? What are you doing? Staying up so late. So do let me know if you have any observations about the practice. And I Oh, I should have gotten the link, but I will put it in. So I was referencing the diamond approach, and they have a course on the green Lataif. So that was part of what was inspiring today's session, where these qualities of nature, qualities of being, can be part of how we relate to our emotional hurt, our compassion. Alex, thank you for your presence and calming energy. Thank you, Alex. Hey, Matt. Thank you. You know what? I finally broke down because I never really knew what the what the sign with the 3 was. And Matt, used that a lot, and another one of my friends used it a lot. And I don't know, I'm a pretty curious person, but it's been several years, and it's just always has kind of been a mystery. So I finally broke down and asked my friend. Matt, I should have just asked you. I was like, what is that? What is that? I mean, it's so cute. Like I assume it's a good thing. And so now I've learned it's the sideways heart. So yeah. So anyway, joke on me. Wow. Well, if there's no particular comments or questions, and I know you have to type it all out. It's a pain, so I get it, but it's always nice when we have discussions. Yeah, I mean, I could keep going on this theme of dissolving pain in nature's flow for quite a while, because there's all kinds of variations. But I think what would be really fun now well, probably will upcoming next will be a series where um uh and I actually did this with a friend, a Zen friend, for several sessions, just the two of us, where we're like, why does practice have to be so serious? Like even in Buddhist circles, for example, there's like this, and beyond Buddhism as well too. There's sometimes like this, like camps of like deliberate practice. Like shamatha vipassana and the jhanas and these kinds of things. Like you're gonna train your mind, and then there's kind of the camp more of the non-dual aspect of like, what are we practicing? Just the very idea of practice is moving us away from the realization that we are true nature. So practice is the opposite of what we need. We just need to realize this. And probably you can already tell from the way that what I need and what I share here is that I need to spend time. It's not enough for me just to read inspiring books or have that sense of an understanding that we are this true nature presence. That there's this need I have to really spend time practicing, in a way, being with that sense of being. And the way that I navigate that for myself, because I'm a terrible trier, a terrible striver. You know, that's part of so much of my suffering has been using anything I could to try and be enough. And so it's like this support with teachings like the Diamond Approach, with teachings like how Master Wonchull Park teaches these qualities of now flow that are unconditional. And then we really discover that for ourselves repeatedly in our own experience. And that there can be a real joyfulness about that, a real playfulness. I know I say, like, we go on these adventures, and I do feel like it's some of the great adventures that we can go on. We can just have a, you know, it's practice, but it's also playtime. It can be like playtime with these qualities. So that's what we're headed towards next, is some kind of a I won't call it an anti-practice, but a joy in just the playing with these qualities rather than even using them or practicing them. All right, looks like we have a juicy question. Alex, any suggestions on maintaining a meditative practice, consistency? I tend to stop or start due to fear of perfection. Almost feel I tend to have a fantasy or an idea of doing it more than doing it. Yeah. I'd be curious if some of what I was saying about striving resonates for you, Alex. Yeah. Was it particularly insightful, I think, about the almost liking the idea of practice, the idea of meditation, better than the doing of it. No question, the doing of it can be tough. We will encounter our monkey mind. We will encounter all kinds of emotional states at a fuller level. And, you know, gosh, it just, on the outside, it can be like the, the Buddhist stavue, you know, with that, you know, beautiful half smile and bliss. And on the inside, it's a thieving circus. That's certainly been my experience a lot of the time. I think I'll just share why I do this practice. And for sure, you know, for me, doing it for an hour helps. I don't feel like that's necessarily what everyone needs. But for me, it's just this opportunity to touch in not on this ideal, but on this, you know, like the 30-minute foundation part of this practice is this opportunity to touch in as immediately and experientially and accessibly as possible on these qualities of nature: mutual flow, free flow, whole flow, that are all of nature. And that's why we start with, you know, crazy simple stuff. Sometimes it's like the unsexy stuff of meditation in many ways. You know, not even wrestling with our mind, but just feeling our seat in the chair, feeling the flow of our breath. And doing so less of like as an, this is part of the playfulness here, like less as an object of meditation. So just see if this connects for you, Alex. Like if I'm trying to tame my mind and achieve like a no thought state, and I'm, feeling the breath at my nose, for example, as a standard object of meditation, then I'm gripping that object of meditation for dear life, like it's this life raft that's going to keep me tethered from, just my mind doing, what it typically does. So that's kind of a controlling and more negative view of the object of meditation. It's like we're going to tether the mind to this, and the objective is to stay concentrated. And for me, that approach to meditation tended to backfire. Yeah, Alex says, yes, I almost put it on a pedestal. Yeah. And so one of the things, and this is why, even in Master Park's second book, we talk about like there's an outer nature retreat and then there's an inner nature retreat. And so it's like, I don't, Alex, if you are a lover of nature, but there's a way if you just go and you sit by a flowing river, some trees blowing in the background, maybe a mountain scene, some blue sky. There's a sense of how much, like there's just a natural sense of ease, and then a sense of how much there is to appreciate in the flow of nature. And to relate to ourself as also having those same qualities. So instead of being like, oh, I gotta, get it right, meditate right. Well, it's like, oh, there's this outer flow of nature, inner flow of nature. Even the flow of my breath is this flow of nature. Can I sit beside the flow of my breath coming in and out of my nose and have some sense of appreciation and enjoyment of it, like I'm in an outer nature retreat? And it's easy to be like, well, what is that going to get us? That's so basic, and that's like, and this is where kind of the view of Taoism can be just helpful support, where we just have the most ordinary, most extraordinary flow of nature that we are part of. And that meditation is not a making anything happen. It's not a making of a special state. It's not making anything different. It's this realization that all of our experience also has all these qualities, just like outer flow of nature, inner flow of nature. Let me see how this is landing. Alex, sometimes I view it as a chore or a necessity for self-care than a way of being. Yeah. And this, thank you for sharing this, Alex, because I think this might help me more speak to some of this in the next series on playfulness with presence, playtime with presence, because once we get a taste of it as actually these qualities, these, touching in on the qualities of presence has this deep kind of pleasure, then it's kind of it's rewarding for its own sake, and it's less about trying to fix what is wrong and more about, oh my goodness, let me expand this feeling of what feels so inherently, words really break down, but so inherently like a deep pleasure that doesn't have an opposite. It's just like this, and that we can touch in on that in really simple ways by feeling the seat on the ground, by feeling the space between our fingers. And then we keep coming back to it, and it becomes its own draw. It becomes its own draw because it has a really satisfying taste. And it can be playful and it can be fun in the moment. And I think especially in the modern age, and as I said, as I started this series, I got serious into meditation for pain management. So like I totally know about the, motivation for self-care. I needed it to get through my day. And I think, as I was saying, especially in this modern age where, we do get bombarded a lot by, like the science of why to do it and the lists of the many benefits that we're going to get. Or the friend that says, oh, meditation helped me so much, you've got to try it. Or the many, podcasts and books that are just a click away. And I feel like something that I encourage anyone that I work with is where I offer this as an example. Like this is after, over 15 years, this is the practice that works for me. Yeah, this is what works for me. And what I would most hope for everyone is to find the practice that works for you, and to feel like you don't have to fit yourself into the box of what works for another person, but to actually become attuned to your own experience so that you find what really works for you. Alex says, I value it because meditation allows me to sit with the pain instead of escape it. But the pro is also the con. I need to feel. So that's the pro, that the value of it is that you can sit with the pain instead of escape it. And then it's also the con. Yeah. Yeah. I feel that. And what I might share, two things. One, and I feel like I should have said this earlier, is that for sure with these, series about dissolving pain in nature's flow, I don't feel like that's the only support. I myself use a lot of methods and supports from teachers, from coaches, from methods in psychology. And so definitely, part of finding your own way is finding your own way through all of that as well. And that a practice like this helps you make that immediacy of contact with your own experience that will help, all the other methodologies and supports that you can have from outside as well. So I think that would be the first thing I would say. And then the second thing that I would offer is the possibility, because, for many years, for example, I was familiar with, say, the process of, I think Tara Brach, wonderful meditation teacher, author of Radical Acceptance, talks about rain. So you recognize the pain, you acknowledge it, you investigate it, and then you have non-identification with it. And honestly, with the way that I was and the way that I worked, that wasn't enough for me. That didn't guide me enough to make the contact, the immediacy of an emotional hurt at the level where you actually get to feel the presence, the qualities of presence that comprise even that own experience. So I spent many years in practice, wanting to accept, trying to accept, trying to do techniques that brought me closer to my pain and my suffering, and really just kind of shoving my nose in it rather than really feeling there was something else on the other side. And if there's something that I hope to be offering here, and this is where the touching in on the qualities of flow as a practice apart from dissolving pain in nature's flow really supports being able to relate to any experience, like even when we did the back of our hands on our lap. Like, there can be massive shifts in our experience just with that. Just with that. And so when we begin to feel how there's these shifts where we actually, really touch in on these qualities in simple ways, then it becomes that much easier to really touch in on the pain sensation while recognizing that there's these qualities, like actually tasting the free flow of emotional hurt. And so that, yes, it's the pro and the con. And then at some level, there is this being able to find the qualities of presence right in the very midst of that experience. And that's, I don't know, I can just make this gesture. I can't finish my sentence, but that gives that possibility and potential. And, it doesn't come all at once. It comes from spending time, quality time, play time, as well as pain time. And so, thank you, Alex, so much for sharing. And I think that as someone like you, writes this, I'm just even seeing many people stayed on. And so I hope that it's the kind of thing that probably many people here can also relate to. So thank you for taking the time to share in the chat. Alex, amen. Sometimes knowledge, understanding, doesn't. A lot of freedom. Yeah. So overall, I mean, this is where like conceptual, ideal, and then there's the real. There's how it should work, and then there's how it works on us. And for me, it really comes to this willingness of spending time over and over and over again on seemingly really ordinary, unsexy stuff. No other word for it. This is not esoteric seeming stuff. This is, just the qualities of presence in their greatest immediacy, accessibility that I've encountered and sharing here with you. So thanks again, Alex, and thank you again for everyone who is a part of this practice here together. And I'm way behind in my many areas of work, but I will be posting some more playtimes with presence